What's up guys, Brian Kelly here from Zombie Guitar. Here in today's video I just want to give you an 18-week, I'm not going to call this a program because this isn't going to be a program that you need to just focus on exclusively for 18 months straight. It's not going to be like that at all. It's actually just going to be like, just do a little sprinkling on top of what you're already doing, and then if you do this, the 18 months is going to pass anyway, you know? So if you do this, you're probably going to be happy with your results. Think of this as like if you're already going to the gym. You're already doing the hard part, you know? You're already working out. You already have a routine, your sets, your reps, your exercises, your preferred times of day. You're already doing the thing, you know? And then someone comes along and they're like, hey, you know what? For the next 18 months, try this. Every single rep you do at the gym, instead of just going up and down and up and down, every single rep you do, try going up and then squeeze at the top and then go down. And then go up and squeeze at the top and then go down. Just add that to what you're already doing. Do that for 18 months, and then after 18 months, you're probably going to be pretty happy with the results. If you don't do that after 18 months, I mean, the time's going to pass anyway, you know? You might as well use the time to improve, you know? So, yeah, anyway, that's what this is about. That's how this is going to work. So, I'll just give you the program right off the bat, and then I'll give you my explanation for it. So, basically, the way that this program is going to work is 1 month, for the entire month straight, you're going to focus on one single note. All right. Now, these notes, you don't have to do them in any particular order, but there's going to be 18 total notes that you're going to need to focus on, one a month for 18 months straight. So the root, third, and fifth of the 1 chord, the root, flat, third, and fifth of the 2 chord, because the 2 chord of a key is a minor chord, root, flat, third, and fifth of the 3 chord, root, third, fifth of the 4 chord, root, third, fifth of the 5 chord, root, flat, third, fifth of the 6 chord. Those are going to be your 18 notes. So again, you don't have to do these in any particular order. You could start on the 5th of the 3 chord, and that could be your first month. That's completely fine. Just kind of write this stuff down on paper and just cross off each one after you complete that. All right, so that's the program. Pretty straightforward, pretty simple. Now it's time for the explanation, because I know a lot of people watching this video are going to be like, what are you talking about? I have no clue. Watch the rest of this video. I'm going to explain everything. So let's quickly just do a review of Layer 1 versus Layer 2, because today's video is about Layer 2. Layer 2 doesn't get the love on the internet that it deserves. Layer 2 hardly gets any love on the internet, actually. All of the internet chatter that you see, all of these pictures that are getting posted on the social medias, everything, like all of the misconceptions, all of the stuff that people are constantly talking about, all of the commenting and everything, like, I don't know, 90% or so is about Layer 1. That's what all of the talk is about. That's the scale patterns. You know, when you're trying to connect these scale patterns together, sometimes you're connecting 5 scale patterns together, and that incorrectly gets called the caged method. People are like, oh, I used the caged method. And then someone else is like, oh, I don't like the caged method. I like the modes method, you know? And the modes method that they're talking about is they're just connecting 7 scale patterns together, you know? So all of the internet chatter is about Layer 1. Layer 2 doesn't get the love that it deserves, but it really should. So let's just look at a practical example here with this Layer 1 and Layer 2. So let's say we have a chord progression. It's an A minor chord to a C major chord to a G major chord to an F major chord. So our Layer 1 would be, we would ask the question, what key? We have the chord progression. We don't care about each individual chord. We care about the chord progression as a whole. What key does that chord progression as a whole put us into? And the answer is C major / A minor. You could say it was the key of C major. You could say it was the key of A minor. I can't argue with you either way. It's, as far as I'm concerned, it's the same key. 7 notes of the C major scale are C, D, E, F, G, A, B. The 7 notes of the A minor scale are A, B, C, D, E, F, G. If you map those 7 notes out across the entire fretboard, they form a bunch of patterns that connect together. It's just the same 7 notes, regardless of whether you call it C major or A minor. You've mapped out the fretboard for that key. That's your Layer 1. That's what all the internet's talking about. They're like, oh, connect pattern 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 together, and we did the caged method. Or connect pattern 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 together, and we did the modes. No. It's just, you've just played the scale. It's just the white notes on a piano for this particular key, the key of A minor / C major. It's just the white keys on a piano, you know? Anyway, but the Layer 2, that's That's the stuff that doesn't get the love on the internet. That's what the cage system is actually about. The layer 2, that's really what the cage is for. Over each chord, you're going to have certain notes that sound really, really good because they're the same notes as the chord that's in the rhythm section, otherwise known as chord tones of the underlying chord in the rhythm section. So we have this big matrix of notes. It's just 7 notes. It's A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. You know, this giant matrix of notes. Over the A minor chord, the notes A, C, and E are going to sound great because an A minor chord consists of the notes A, C, and E. Over the C major chord, the notes C, E, and G are going to sound great because those are the chord tones that make up a C major chord. Over a G major chord, the notes G, B, and D are going to sound great because those are the notes that make up a G major chord. Over the F major chord, the notes F, A, and C are going to sound great because those are the notes that make up an F major chord. So layer 2 is where you dive deeper into these scale patterns that you've connected together, that the whole internet is talking about, all these connecting scale patterns, that layer 1. Layer 2 is about getting more specific. It's like, oh, okay, I have my scale patterns, I've connected all my scale patterns together, but now I'm snipering, you know, it's like a sniper, like, oh, the A minor's coming, boom, I'll hit that A note. Ooh, C major chord's coming, boom, I'll hit that E note, because an E is a chord tone of the C major chord. Ooh, G major chord's coming around, pew, shoot the D note, because that's a chord tone of the G major chord. You're snipering into the scale. That's what chord tone targeting is. All right, so that's your layer 1 and your layer 2. Now, layer 1, as I said, that's what gets all the talk on the internet. That's what everyone's always talking about. That's what all the images that are shared all over the place on the internet. It's all about layer 1. The reason being is because it's relatively simple to grasp. I'm not saying it's easy to internalize. It's going to take you a long time to memorize all these scale patterns and connect them all together so that you can get to the point where you can kind of like effortlessly just solo up and down the neck in any key without really having to think too much. That takes a long time to do, but just to grasp the concept, that doesn't take that long. People tend to get it pretty quickly. They're like, oh, okay, if I play this first scale pattern, and then I move up and I play this other scale pattern, and then I move up and I play this other scale pattern, it's all the same scale. It's just kind of connecting everything together. Yeah, it makes sense. It's easy. I got that. It's because layer 1 is static. Layer 1 is remaining unchanged. For example, chord progression. Over the A minor chord, you're playing the one single scale that you've mapped out. The C major scale, the A minor scale. Over the C major chord, you're playing the one single scale that you mapped out. The C major scale, the A minor scale. Over the G major chord, you're still playing the one single scale that you mapped out. The C major scale, A minor scale. Over the F major chord, you're still just playing that one single scale. So the chords are over here changing, you know, but your lead guitar playing stuff, you're only focusing on the scale. The scale is not changing as the chords do. The scale is remaining constant. Therefore, the concept in and of itself is pretty easy to grasp, you know? I know that when I first figured this stuff out, I was like, oh, that's not too bad, you know? And then I was able to solo like in any key. All I had to do is just figure out where my pattern 1 is, and I know pattern 2 is right next to it, pattern 3 is right next to that, pattern 4 is right next to that, you know? It's not a hard concept for a lot of people to grasp. Layer 2 is much more complicated for people to grasp because it is constantly changing as the chords do. Layer 1 remains constant, layer 2 is constantly changing. So as that A minor chord's coming along, I have these notes of focus. I have this A, C, and E to focus on. And then the C major chord comes along, and then now my notes of focus have changed, you know? So if I'm a sniper, I'm like, okay, I'm aiming for that A minor chord. All right, I got my target. Ah, man, the C major chord comes along. Damn, now I got to switch my target. Oh, the G major chord. Damn, the chords are changing so fast, your target notes are constantly changing. You don't have to think like that with layer 1. With layer 1, your scale's just remaining constant. Another thing about this layer 1 versus layer 2 stuff, and the reason that people tend to grasp the concept of layer 1 much more easily than layer 2, is because when it comes to layer 1, people have no problem resorting to guitar theory. Guitar theory is where you don't need to learn your notes. You don't have to know all your notes of your fretboard. If I want to play my A minor pentatonic scale, I just have to be like, oh, put that on the note A, play pattern. If I want to play my A natural minor scale in that same position, pentatonic position 1, I'm just like, oh, put that on note A, play full scale. I don't know what notes I just played. I mean, I do know what notes I just played, but most people don't know what notes they just played. They just played a pattern. And then you can just do the same thing and say, I want to play in the key of B minor, and I want to use pentatonic position number 1, and I want to use the full 7-note diatonic scale to do so. I don't need to know the notes on my fretboard. I just have to be like, put that on note B, Ah, there's pattern. Play pattern. I just played my B natural minor scale, and I didn't have to know what those notes were, you know? That's guitar theory in a nutshell. Guitar theory allows you to rely on shapes and patterns that can be moved all up and down the fretboard depending on what key you're in. The patterns remain exactly the same, they just get moved around, and that's determined by what key you're playing in. But when it comes to this layer 2 stuff, which doesn't get all the love on the internet that it really should, but those who do dare to venture into this layer 2 territory, for some reason, they have a lot of trouble resorting to guitar theory. For some reason, they think, oh, I must have to learn all the notes on my fretboard now. I have to do that, because how else am I ever going to hit the notes C, E, and G if I don't know where the notes C, E, and G are on the fretboard? How am I ever going to target the notes G, B, and D if I don't know where the notes G, B, and D are on the fretboard? I have to learn my notes. Guitar theory worked great for layer 1, but now that we're in this complicated territory that is layer 2, I gotta learn my notes, I gotta bust out the music theory books, I gotta resort to general music theory. Gotta do it. But you don't have to. You don't have to at all. You can do all of this layer 2 stuff, you can do all the chord tone targeting that you want, and you don't have to learn all the notes of your fretboard. Guitar theory applies to layer 1 exactly the same as it does to layer 2. The only difference is that layer 1 remains constant and unchanged, while layer 2 is constantly changing as the chords do. So how exactly do we do this? How exactly are we supposed to chord tone target these ever-changing chords without knowing all the notes on our fretboard? How do we do that? And the answer is numbers, intervals. Everything on the guitar, it becomes much easier when you, instead of thinking of notes, focus on intervals instead, numbers. That's what makes everything movable. Intervals are the reason that all of these shapes are able to be moved around. Intervals are the reason that this pattern in the key of A minor shares the same pattern as the key of B minor. Even though the notes are different, the patterns are the same. The reasons the patterns are the same is because of intervals. Numbers, intervals. That's the secret to the guitar. That's how you unlock everything. All right, so let's just take a deeper dive into one of these scale patterns. All right, so again, remember the scale pattern is going to remain constant because that is layer 1. That remains constant. It doesn't change. Same scale pattern, all 4 chords. Let's say our chord progression does something like this. If you were to solo over that chord progression, and you're like many other guitar players that are unaware of layer 2 and heavily focused on layer 1 because that's what all of the love on the internet goes to, it's the layer 1 stuff, you know, you would probably be doing something like this. You noodle, 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 chord tone. Noodle, 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 chord tone. Noodle, 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 chord tone. And the chord tones that you hit, if you're playing in pentatonic position 1, which is super common, you're probably doing that a lot anyway, you're probably noodle, 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 chord tone, noodle, 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 chord tone, noodle, 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 bend, noodle, 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 bend. So why does that note sound good? Why does this note sound good? Why do these two notes sound good together? Why does this bend sound good? Why does this bend sound good? Those are the common things that all guitar players do in pentatonic position 1 because those are chord tones. Those are chord tones of the A minor chord. The A minor chord is just one of the 4 chords in the chord progression, but we do have the tendency to noodle over all of the rest of the chords and completely ignore the chord tones, but then hit the chord tones over the A minor chord, the tonal center, the home chord for this example. You know? We may not know that we're chord tone targeting, but we are. Every time you're noodle, 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 and that sounds good, you're attributing that to the scale. You're like, oh, it's just because I'm playing the correct scale, you know? No. You're playing the correct scale, but you're chord tone targeting over that one chord. Every time you noodle, 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 and you bend this note, you're like, damn, that bend sounds so good. Why does that sound so good? Ah, it must be because I'm playing the correct scale, you know? No, it's because you're chord tone targeting. That's why that bend sounds good. The objective here is we want to get that same level of control over all of the chords and not just the first chord in the progression, you know? So, over the C major chord, your notes of focus are this now. So you would be playing the same scale pattern, but your notes that you would land on, your sniper notes, would change because now it's on a C major chord. And then when it's on a G major chord, your notes of focus would change yet again. The same scale pattern, layer 1 remains constant. So those are your notes of focus within the scale pattern. And then over the F major chord, that's all right in that little area. So as you could see, each of those 4 chords formed a shape within the scale pattern, you know? So if the scale pattern is movable and you can take the guitar theory approach to moving the scale pattern, in other words, you can take the guitar theory approach to moving your layer 1 to any other key that you want simply by knowing where the root note location on the low E string is, why can't you also take that same line of thinking and apply it to layer 2 as well? And you absolutely can, you know? So let's change keys now. Let's go to the key of B minor. So instead of this, it's now all right, so now my pentatonic position number 1 is here. I'm in the key of B minor. Put it on the note B. There's my scale pattern. Over the B minor chord, all the same licks and stuff that I was doing in A minor are still going to work now. Everything's now in this pattern, you know? So this note's going to sound good. This note's going to sound good. These 2 notes together are going to sound good. This bend's going to sound good. This bend's going to sound good. This is going to sound good. Because I'm chord tone targeting over the first chord of the progression. Chord progression moves to this chord, your notes of focus within that static scale pattern also change. focus because I'm on a different chord. And then when it gets to this chord, to this chord, shape-wise, everything remained identical. It's just that for the key of A minor, I was just doing my noodly noodle stuff and chord tone targety stuff here. And then for the key of B minor, I was just doing my noodly noodle stuff here and my chord tone targety stuff here. Shape-wise, nothing changed, though. And that's how the guitar works, man. Layer 1, layer 2, it's movable shapes and patterns. Everything on the guitar is movable. So, how are we going to do this? Because when you're just playing in one little pentatonic box and you got to memorize your little chord shapes, not too bad, right? But what about once you map out the whole entire guitar? What about you map out the whole entire guitar fretboard? You connect all your scale patterns together. Maybe you did the 5 patterns approach. So you've connected your scale together via the 5 pattern approach. Now you have this whole matrix of notes and you're still like, oh man, I still don't know these scale patterns. And then you're like, wait a minute, now I'm supposed to keep up with these chord changes too and chord tone target? Are you crazy, dude? Like, I can't even play all the scale patterns yet. How am I supposed to keep up with the chord changes? You're crazy. So first of all, I recommend going back and checking out that video that I did like 2 weeks ago. It's called Solo Like a Rock Star in 1 year. That was about layer 1. If you just do that for like a year straight, you're going to get pretty good at layer 1. You can play in any major key, any minor key, up and down the entire neck of the guitar. So definitely do that prior to diving into this layer 2 stuff. But once you are ready to jump into this layer 2 stuff, that's where the program comes in. The program that I said in the very beginning of this video. You need to number your chords. Stop calling the chords by their actual names and start applying numbers to them, because everything on the guitar is movable. This is 6. This is 1. This is 5. This is 4. If I want to play in a different key, this is 6. This is 1. This is 5. This is 4. If I want to play in the key of D minor / F major, I don't have to use all movable bar chords like I'm doing now. I can still use open chords too, you know. If I want to play in the key of D minor / F major, this isn't D minor anymore. This is 6. This isn't F major anymore. This is 1. This isn't a C major chord. This is a 5. This isn't a B flat major chord. This is a 4. Then there's that whole numbering thing, you know. I just want to put this out there. The listener does not give one flying rat's hiney hole about how you number chords. They don't care. Okay, so if I'm in the key of A minor, you want to say, oh, I'm playing in the key of A minor. The A minor needs to be the 1 chord. That needs to have the label of the 1 on it. Okay, do it. That's fine. I don't care. You just renumber your chords accordingly. A minor is your 1, B diminished is 2, C major is your flat 3, D minor is your 4, E minor is 5, F major is flat 6, G major is your flat 7. Number your chords that way. Knock yourself out. I do not care. What does matter is the fact that you're consistent, because whatever numbering system you use, regardless if it's a major key context or a minor key context, needs to be able to be moved to other keys. So if you want to use minor numbering for minor keys and then move it to other minor keys, just make sure you use the same numbering. Me personally, I just use major perspective numbering, not all the time, but a lot of the time, especially for stuff like this. That's why I'm saying, oh, this is a 6, 1, 5, 4 progression. This is a 6, 1, 5, 4 progression. I could play it like this. I could play 6, 1, 5, 4. This is a different key now. 6, 1, 5, 4. I could play in this key. 6, 1, 5, 4, you know? It's the numbers that are important. Now, back to the program with all that stuff said. So, any given key, you have 12 keys. All 12 keys work exactly the same way. You have 3 major chords, you have 3 minor chords, and you have 1 diminished chord. Of those 7 chords, the ones that you're going to be encountering the most often is going to be the major chords and the minor chords. Is that to say that you're never going to encounter the diminished chord or half diminished chord or anything like that? No, you probably are, but it's not going to be super common. Super common is going to be you're playing songs that are in keys, and the songs that are in keys are going to consist of the chords that are in that key, and most of them are going to be major chords and minor chords. So this is going to be like the bulk of the stuff that you're going to be doing for like your whole life, you know? If you happen to come across a diminished chord, cross that road when you get to it, you know? We're focused on the bulk of what you're going to be doing. So you have 3 major chords, 3 minor chords. Each of those has a root, third, and a fifth. Or if it's a minor chord, it's a root, a flat third, and a fifth, you know? So you don't have to do this in any order. You have 18 months. You have 18 specific notes to focus on, 1 per month. Let's say for month number 1, my objective is to focus on the root note of the 5 chord. All right, so back to the first example progression we had. Oh, there's the 5 chord right there. All right, so my objective is to focus on the root of the 5 chord every time the 5 chord occurs. It doesn't matter what key I'm playing in. Right now I happen to be playing in the key of A minor / C major. I'm using major perspective numbering. Therefore, this G major chord gets the label of 5 chord. My objective for month 1 is to focus on root note of 5 chord no matter where I happen to be on the fretboard. So if I'm soloing in pentatonic position number 1, oh, there's root note of 5 chord. I know that if I bend this note, it's going to hit root note of 5 chord. If I know right here is root note of 5 chord 2. So what if I want to play in a different key? What if I want to play in the key of B minor? All right, no problem. Here's my chord progression. Ooh, there's that 5 chord again. All right, using major perspective numbering. Even though I'm in the key of B minor, I'm still using numbering as if this was the key of D major. B minor is a relative major, you know. So let's say I'm playing in pentatonic position number 1, which falls right here for this key. I've been doing my work. I've been focusing on my root note of the 5 chord, you know. So having been doing my work, let's say I'm already like a week into this or something like that. Oh, I'm in pentatonic position number 1. Oh, that's where the root note is. I know that. Oh, I know I can bend this note and achieve that. Oh, I know my other instance of the root note is right down there of the 5 chord. You know, so I'm starting to learn pentatonic position number 1 in a new way because I'm thinking of this very specific note. Now, the reason I'm saying to do this for a whole month is you could do this for like 10 minutes or an hour or something like that, and I mean, how much of that are you going to internalize, you know? But if you do this for like a whole month, think about how good you're going to get. Because this expands beyond just pentatonic position number 1, you know? Let's say you're playing in pentatonic position number 4 one day. You know, let's go back to the key of A minor C major again. Here's your pentatonic position number 4 for that key. You know, you're noodling in your pentatonic position number 4, and you know that your root note of the 5 chord in pentatonic position number 4 always lands here. And you know you can bend to that. Or you know you can hit that. That's your root note. And you know it's here. You know, so you're learning pentatonic position number 4 in a new way. And then you can take that same information and play that in other keys. You're like, oh, I'm in a new key now. I'm in the key of C sharp minor. Oh, there's that chord again. There's that 5 chord. Doesn't matter what the chord is called. I just know that that's a 5 chord and I know what key I'm in. All right, so I'm in the key of C sharp minor / E major. Boom, here's my pentatonic position number 1. I know that that's where the root note of the 5 chord is. I know if I bend this note, it's going to achieve the root note of the 5 chord. Here's the root note of the 5 chord. What if I'm playing in pentatonic position number 4 for the key of C sharp minor or E major? I already know where my root notes for the 5 chord are. Here's one, here's one, here's one, you know. I'm learning these pentatonic boxes in a totally different way as related to the chords. And I'm doing it one single note at a time over the course of 18 months. This is super, super powerful stuff. So I highly suggest you do it. Really, really try it, because chord tone targeting is where the magic happens when it comes to the guitar. It's all about numbers. It's all about intervals. That's the glue that keeps keys having the same patterns as one another, intervals, you know. So really do this. If there's any questions at all, I will try to make another, I will make another video about this, because this is super important. I want this concept to get across. So if you guys are not understanding this, let me know. Give me specific questions. I'll make more videos that address those specific questions. But yeah, definitely give this a shot. Thanks for watching. See you next time.